You've heard for the last hour or so about success and about the university's contribution to Ireland's success in the EU for 50 years. I'll spend my 4 minutes and 50 seconds on the future. Looking forward, is the performance sustainable? Are the conditions for sustaining performance in place? Because expectations are changing in Europe and across the world. And some of you may have seen a document that EUA produced a year ago. It's called Universities Without Walls. And EUA, by the way, represents the 49 countries all the way to Vladivostok. We had to consult everybody over the period of a year to set out a roadmap for the university sector for the next 10 to 15 years. You can read it in 30 minutes some other time. But in the document, we set out very clearly the conditions for success, the enablers of university success in the future, and fundamentally there were 4 key ones. So how are we scoring in Ireland? Firstly, there are 2 requirements of universities. One is that leadership must be strong and professionalized at all levels within the universities and developed career-long. And it's good to see that the IUA has embraced this, and there is now a leadership development program in association with Advance HE from the UK. So that's the first one. Something's happening. And the HEA. How could I forget the HEA? Secondly, within the universities, there's a requirement to reform academic career assessment and the reward systems, so that the incentives for the staff are aligned with where universities need to go. And progress there, because 2 months ago, the Commission, the EUA, and Science Europe, who represent all the funding agencies for science, agreed the early steps for reform of assessment. And tonight, may I ask our Irish universities to sign up at the end of this month to the Coalition of the Willing to support this reform. So they're the 2 for the universities. Governments are the second key actors, and they control the other 2 determinants of success, enablers, the regulatory environment and resources. So how well are we positioned in that regard? Data. We publish what's called the autonomy scorecard across Europe every 5 years. The last one was in 2017. It will be published again this year. The last one ranked Ireland 3rd for academic freedom, 11th for organizational autonomy, 13th for financial autonomy, and 27th of 28 in freedom to manage staff, the most important asset, of course, in any institution. Only Croatia, they were 28th. We've nearly got there for data collection for 2022, but I have to say that looking at what has come in, the regulatory environment here is actually going in the wrong direction. The HEA bill is going to be problematic from the point of view of institutional autonomy. And can I also say that there will be no competition for the gold medal for micromanagement, because there is no sector in Europe that has 230 performance indicators. Nowhere. So I'm giving a message on that enabler. The system here is actually very similar to Eastern and Southern Europe, not like our real competitors in the North and West. The second enabler, of course, is public funding, and the picture is actually somewhat brighter than it was, because the Public Funding Observatory, which monitors all countries across Europe, has had Ireland for the last 10 years in a category called systems in distress, systems at risk, alongside Serbia and Estonia recently. The good news is Ireland has bottomed out in the past 2 years. And yes, we know there's a specific challenge here, that demographics, the envy of Europe, are of course a challenge. But it is important that they are properly funded, the new cohort and the old cohort equally, and all the unfunded capital depreciation of the past 15 years. But closing on a bright note, as the Minister said, we have now got a dedicated ministry in Ireland for higher education and research, very common across Europe. First in Irish history, a symbol of new political commitment and acknowledgement that in the modern knowledge society, countries will only be as successful as their higher education systems will be. Recognizing that and acting upon it is fundamental. So if this ministry is sustained long term, if it reverses the Irish regulatory framework to one that is actually fit for purpose and competitive in Europe, and if successive ministers for higher education and research are successful continually in persuading finance ministers that money in higher education and research is an investment and not a cost, then the answer to Shane Coleman's question that he asked last will be that in September the 6th, 2072, there will be much more to celebrate in this room, or our ghosts will be here to exact vengeance. I wish you luck. Thank you very much.